Hello, hello, and happy new moon. Welcome to Wisdom Circle's discussions on menopause transition and other informative, humorous, empowering, sometimes humbling, and often ridiculous stories about aging. My name is Laura Libby, also known as burlesque performer Ophelia Flame, and I'm excited and honored to be your host for these monthly informative discussions. So today we'll feature one of my bestest besties, talented and delightful Alyssa Abrahamson. But first, I'd like to share a little bit about how we got to this very moment. So, in addition to being a burlesque performer and instructor for the last 30 years, I'm also a group fitness instructor and massage therapist. And despite my love for anatomy and physiology and what I felt like was a deep connection to body awareness, my menopause transition has been a confusing experience with a myriad of symptoms ranging from mild to extreme that have mostly been ignored and misdiagnosed by uninformed medical professionals. So suddenly, I really felt like my whole life just turned upside down, and I felt like I was just slowly disappearing, both figuratively and literally. And what I didn't know then was that this is really a common and powerful feeling during menopause transition. That is the reason that so many of us, and that the reason that so many of us are largely in the dark about this huge life-changing event involving our very own bodies, has a long history of gatekeeping, misogyny, misinformation, shame, and fear. So now, 8 years into my own menopausal roller coaster, I'm inspired to redefine and demystify aging by empowering women to be seen and heard while finding confidence and pleasure in living at any age. I recently became a certified menopause support coach through Burl Education and am creating my own unique program that I've just launched this year. So to clarify, these discussions are for anyone at any age, assigned rather an ovarian system, and the folks that love them. By sharing our stories and our inherent wisdom, our open discussions build knowledge, offer tools, resources, and support so we can better navigate our own unique experiences. And with an estimated 1.1 million women entering into menopause transition annually in the US alone, there's a good chance that you or someone you might know have some pressing questions about, and even some concerns about this physiological, biological, cultural, familial, and spiritual rite of passage. Menopause is a powerful life transition. It is not a disease or an affliction. So let's do a little bit of a vocabulary check-in. And just in general, the average age most people begin perimenopause is around 45, but it's completely different for every person based on your own health history, including mental health, including such as childhood trauma or even PTSD. So this is when your hormones begin to shift, and the changes are usually gradual. And this can last from 2 years to easily over a decade. Some symptoms can include, but are not limited to, irregular periods, hot flashes or flushes, chills, night sweats, mood changes, weight gain, particularly in the midsection, slowed metabolism, fatigued, insomnia, brain fog, anxiety, depression, irritability, moodiness, rage, and my favorite, vaginal dryness. What a party. Typically, but not always, menopause begins around the age 51, and it has been 365 days since you've had a menstrual period and the ovaries have gone into retirement, be that on their own or suddenly at any age by way of surgery, such as a hysterectomy, an oophorectomy, or a medical treatment such as chemotherapy for cancer. So once that shift happens, you may still experience symptoms, but they usually begin to lessen. Post-menopause is when we settle into our new transformative selves, in which will be hopefully the next 20 to 40 years. Menopause transition is the term for the whole wild ride. The term natural menopause is a term I prefer not to use because it implies there's only one way to experience the transition, and that any other way is unnatural, which is framework that is not only false, but is really stigmatizing. The term gradual menopause better helps describe how people come to their transition by way of some kind of perimenopause process over a period of time, while sudden menopause is without the longer process of perimenopause and may happen after a hysterectomy, as I mentioned, or an ovarectomy, or medical treatment such as chemotherapy. Diet culture is something that we will discuss today. If you're not familiar, is something that promotes restriction, obsession around food and exercise, avoiding, stigmatizing fatness, and anxiety around the social, physical, and just romantic consequences of failing to perform in these behaviors. So today we're going to hear all about our guest's journey and discuss how diet culture affects and even preys on menopausal women and their changing bodies. We welcome your questions and comments afterwards in what I'm going to imagine is going to be an informative and lively discussion. So without further ado, Alyssa Abrahamson, aka burlesque sensation Minnetonka, was diagnosed in 2000 with rheumatoid arthritis, an autoimmune disease that causes chronic pain, stiffness, and inflammation in the joints. And in effort to overcome these debilitating symptoms, she began a healing journey exploring healthy lifestyle changes such as just positive mindset practices, diet, nutrition, as well as healing modalities, including yoga and meditation. And so using her personal experience as inspiration, Alyssa has developed her own nutrition and wellness coaching practice to support others. Alyssa is committed to helping anyone who wants to feel better, improve their health, and create a balanced and vibrant life. Alyssa is certified by the Nutritional Therapy Association and has been helping improve people's lives as a nutrition and holistic wellness coach since 2017, and is also the creator of the awesome, get your pens, write this down, weekly podcast, Positively Anti-Inflammatory. Please give me a warm virtual welcome, give her rather a warm virtual welcome to Alyssa Abrahamson, Minnetonka. Hello. Hello.
I'm unmuting myself. Hi.
Unmuting yourself. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
So Alyssa, we've had some really monumental discussions just about our relationships to food and the ways that we can heal our bodies in loving ways through positive mindset, nutrition, and just really listening to what our bodies are trying to tell us. You were really instrumental. We'll talk about that later, but you were really instrumental in part of my journey. So I always thank you for that. So, but I'd love for us to start out by just hearing more about your personal experience and where you are in regard to your own menopausal journey.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Happy to be here. Yay! So, as you were talking, I had a memory. I think it was 2014, and I was going through like so many health issues with rheumatoid arthritis and just had this terrible, terrible UTI. And there was a period of like, I dropped a lot of weight unintentionally, and I stopped getting my period for several months. And I remember I was backstage as a burlesque performer. I was backstage with someone and they were talking about their period. And I felt, and this was like 2014, so a long time ago. I mean, I just turned 50. So I was 41. And I remember I was so uncomfortable that I hadn't had my period, and embarrassed, and just I was confused, and like it just didn't feel right. And I remember her talking about her period and me just kind of not even mentioning that I was having issues, because I just felt uncomfortable and just being like, oh yeah, totally, blah, blah, blah. And so as you're talking, for whatever reason, that memory popped up, because there's this, I don't know, this idea of what our life is supposed to be with our period and without it, and how we're supposed to be in the world or with ourselves, with or without it. So Right now I'm currently still menstruating. I would say the past year, uh, I'm getting my period like every 23 days, which is really annoying. It's like every 3 weeks. Um, but then the past like 2 months, it's been every 30 days. So I'm like, okay. And just the length has changed. My PMS has gotten longer. And for me, PMS, this past month, actually, my nipples were really very tender, and that's not common for me. And that was really like, holy shit, that was just really interesting. But then just in terms of PMS, um, I can get really, really I feel I can get angry and just a lot of negative self-talk and really feeling super, super alone, which really sucks. That's how the PMS affects me, and it's been getting a little bit longer as the older I get. So I guess that's a part of the menopausal journey. And I think, so those are physical, some physical and emotional. Intellectual, it's just kind of this idea thinking about where am I and what's that going to look like. But I really kind of like to help tap into the body and feel where those emotions are and explore that, because I think that often we can get just caught up on like what's expected and what's different and where we think we should be or what we think we should be doing. But then when we actually just can reconnect and be in touch with ourselves and understanding that we really don't know what the future holds, and we can just be with ourselves along our journey in a compassionate way, then that can be, I think, just really empowering, if that makes any sense. So I guess I'm kind of thinking, okay, I'm 50. My sister is 3.5 years older. It's been about a year that she hasn't had her period. So just kind of basing it off around my sister, where she's at, and she's definitely like in feeling all the menopausal stuff. And we've talked about it. So that's interesting to experience a sibling, go through it. And that feels comforting in a way that I have her and to talk to about her experience. She can do it first.
Right. She's paving the way for you. Right. Well, I love that. And that was actually one of my segments of, that I always like to ask people, as I've told you, my reason for wanting to do these discussion is just to really start normalizing the conversation. And because there is, our Western world has medicalized, menopause and our bodies and our, I mean, right. So it's like this idea of, there's so much misinformation out there, and they like always want to put, women in a box, right? That like, that like there, but we know that there is no one way, right? We all have this transition in our own way, and incidentally, not that you need my validation, but everything that you're describing is totally normal, to like having like shorter periods, having longer periods, having more PMS, and like, when I started learning more and more about estrogen and the part that it plays in literally every factor, and not just in women, but like in every aspect of our, our lung tissue, our heart tissue, our vaginal tissue, like, how it plays such a huge part. Like you mentioned, you're having more hormonal and that sort of PMS, like that shift of progesterone and estrogen is a huge, huge impact on our emotional, suicide ideology and anxiety and depression. At the highest rate of the age group of the highest rate of suicide in women is 45 to 55. Shocking, like that perimenopause to menopausal time is the time where it's this, so women need to unite and support and be informed. And yeah, I think that it's like it's important that we we have these conversations. Yeah, anyway, do you mind if we go back for just rewind for a sec? Because I'm interested in digging a little deeper, if you don't mind, about why I first of all, I love that you just had this like rando memory of being backstage, but why do you think you felt so uncomfortable about it?
Yeah. Let me think for a second. I can just, I mean, I can picture it. I know exactly who it was. I know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
that image is so there. I think because I felt like I knew that I was older than her anyway. And um I think that there was probably just some fear around aging and not being a part of like the menstruating club, you know? And like that's what I've known since I got my period when I was 14. So around that time I was like late, if you will. But so when you are experiencing your period for decades, you then all of a sudden you're not a part of that, insider.
Isn't it sort of crazy town that like, okay, so most women hate their periods and they spend so much
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
we're the first generation, in that the Gen X window who are our entire adult lives may have been on some sort of synthetic estrogen, like a birth control or of some
Right.
sort. And so, that was really pitched to us too, to like disassociate from our bodies and that menstruation is gross and, whatever. And that like, you don't have to have a period is like,
Right.
so it's like, I just think it's interesting, isn't it? Like that we spent all this time like wanting to get rid of it, not wanting to have it, but then when it's time to make that transition, there's this shame and fear about
Right.
being, yeah, also not included.
Right. Totally not included. Oh my God. Absolutely. So yeah, and what's funny, and I remember then when I got it again, I was performing in Virginia and it was the full moon and we were like getting ready for the show and all of a sudden I got my period. I think it had been like 9 months since I had gotten my period and it was the full moon and I was like, holy shit, I just got my period again. And and I was very happy about it. But I've definitely gone through, as we all have, period woes, a lot of fucked up period shit. Um, but
And that you're not going to get it. We're like, I mean,
right,
that
right,
aspect too,
right,
right?
right, right. But I think, the thought, yeah, it's like the thought of um not having it, I think is, yeah, for me, that is sad. It is something to mourn and grieve. But what's also really interesting, so I love people of all ages, but since I've turned 50 for some reason, like I just want to hang out with older people.
I mean,
I don't even know what older means, but like, but I want to like, I'm finding comfort in hanging out with my friends that are like going through or have gone through menopause. That is just that feels very validating to me and comforting because there is this idea of wise women, like literally. And I know we can all have wisdom. I mean, you can have whatever wisdom whatever that means to you, whatever age, but just in terms of our own evolution of life on this earth, it's there does feel like this beautiful bond and experience to open up and share. And I feel very grateful that we're in a time where and I'm in a community where there is openness to talk about this. There might not be for everyone, but I feel very grateful for that because it's super important. And what's also fucking awesome is that if you guys have read Judy Blume books, So she just had Are You There, God It's Me, Margaret come out on film. So
Have you
I
seen
went
it?
with, I just went
Oh,
last
you
week
did? Yeah.
with four
Yeah.
friends.
Oh,
So
fun.
we had all read it when we were young. It came
Right.
out in 1972. I probably read it, in the 80s. And it's all about getting your period and that kind of transition and that excitement. And so it was fun to talk about that and experience that. But there we were all in our 50s, and talking about it. And that just felt just really bonding,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's on Amazon Prime. I just watched the documentary on Judy Blume. Have you watched
Yeah.
that?
No, but I haven't. It's on I'm
Okay.
ready to, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm ready to,
check it out.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, it's like it's so interesting because she's such a kind and sweet and gentle person, but she's a fucking badass. Like, I mean, it was radical that women did not, I mean, in that her era of even 70s and 80s, people were burning her books and banning them, and she's just like about honesty, children,
yeah,
young adults need honesty and they need to, they don't just need puppies and kitties of the 50s, this sort of,
right.
but yeah, so check that out. That's really good too. Yeah, I'm sorry. So you were saying,
Yeah, no, and also just in terms of like age and aging, I I am I've shared this in various ways personally and kind of like out in the world, but when I turned 40, I was in severe debilitating chronic pain with rheumatoid arthritis. I just was lots of amazing things were happening in my life, but I was in hell. And I was terrified to turn 40. I was like, who am I? What the fuck am I doing? And so it was really in my 40s that I really I learned to prioritize myself and my health. And then going into this new decade of 50, I kind of just took action before I even really thought about the significance. And I took action to celebrate versus literally on my 40th birthday. I'm a huge birthday celebrator. On my 40th birthday, I was like home, like weeping. I was like so depressed. But my 50th birthday, I mean, I did a photo shoot. I had a huge party. I had a smaller intimate party, dinner. I had like all these things that I was doing to celebrate. And I just kind of took action before I could even like do thoughtful process. And that was for me has just kind of been the catalyst for now I'm like obsessed with telling everyone that I'm 50.
right?
Versus before, I'd be like, I wasn't hiding my age, but I wasn't like showcasing it. Now I just feel it feels freeing to me. And so that just feels like this is who I am. And just recognizing also that it's so important for even like younger women also just to like have role models for people who are being vulnerable and open for all of like the work that all of us here are doing on our own emotional and mental and physical health, and seeing how awesome it is to evolve into yourself and open your heart to yourself and learn to get to know yourself.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. And I agree that that's really changing. I think that, you know, I I feel like our generation is that irreverent, punk rock Gen X that's like, what when I got to perimenopause, I was so I feel like I have more body awareness and knowledge of anatomy and physiology, pathology than the average person. I still was so confused. I just kept thinking it was stress. I kept being told it was stress. I mean, and you've been with me through some of my extreme symptoms, ranging
Right.
from extreme migraines to, Bell's palsy, like, things that like nobody could put their finger on. They're like, oh, you just need to, You just need to rest. You're working too hard. And it's like the blind leading the blind. The medical community is changing now. We are changing now. We are like, this is it's not acceptable, right? That one in less than 1 in 4 general practitioners have any training about menopause medicine at all. 30% of residencies don't even, less than 30% don't even offer, or the only ones that offer, should say rather, menopause medicine. They don't understand, like, because OBGYNs, they become, doctors because they want to birth babies, and women are only valuable for their reproduction, so like there is all that fear and shame and stigma and bullshit all wrapped into the societal of what it means to be a woman, or what it means to have a uterus, like, even if you decide not to have children, which is perfectly your right and with good reason. For a lot of people don't want to have children, but there's still in this day and age so much stigma around not having children, and so
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I just went to the gynecologist in February, late February, and she asked if I'm still getting my period, and I said yes. And she even brought up, she's like, she's like, okay, good, blah, blah, blah. And she acknowledged that, and that she was like, no one talks about menopause or changes in and it was refreshing, because having gone to, having gynecology experiences throughout my life, granted I was younger, but it felt very validating that we had like a brief little conversation, that no one talks about it.
Yeah, I mean, I just
No
like,
one
I
talks
have
about it.
so much respect for people of authority, doctors who know more than me, to say, you know what, I don't know, but I'm gonna find
Right.
out. Not like here, many doctors for years would just give women Prozac and birth control pills. No, like, there's so much. If your doctor is giving you birth control pills and Prozac because you're having menopausal symptoms, I'm here to tell you there are way better options for you. And that's a whole other conversation, but put a pin in it, email me, call me, whatever, if that's happening in your life, because it's bullshit. It's passing the buck. And, it's really, you know, I love that your doctor said that. And I love that, like, that now it's so much more out in the open, because when I got there, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, nobody was talking about it, nobody knew, like, it's this mystery. And I think that it's, that is, therein lies the, you know lies the, the so much say in our bodies, right? And how our bodies are used, how they're not used. It was really not until like the 1700s that the medical community started to refer to menopause as a disease of the endocrine system,
Mhm.
not just a natural rite of passage that happens to everybody with a uterus, you know? And, we've talked about this before, like in many cultures, I love this term, the term called wise blood. So like when women are, blood creates life, like nothing gets here unless it's through us, which is some powerful shit. It's like the ultimate power, right? Nothing comes onto this earth unless it comes through a woman. And so that desire to want to, I mean, there are in some cultures who men even make themselves bleed, right? For that, like that ceremonial, aspect of having their, having bleed and sacrifice and blood. Wise blood is, we're giving of the blood for to create life, and keeping our blood within is retaining our wisdom and holding what they refer to in many cultures as wise blood, which I think is really
Hmm.
cool. I'm totally with you. And like I said, I think it's changing. I want the next generation of women, my daughter who's 17, I want her when it comes time, just as she did when she got her period. It was, informative and celebratory and, like a rite of passage. I want her to feel informed, supported, and celebrated. Not like it's this, oh, oh yeah, guess what? Like I always thought it was just sort of like, well, you just don't get your period anymore and maybe you get a little sweaty. Like it's so much more than that, right? It's so much, it can be really debilitating and it can also be like this incredible, beautiful time in your life where you, after years, you've spent, building others, your careers and households and, maybe children or whatever. When you make that transition, it's like women often talk about, elder women, about how then it's time to step into birthing yourself, which I think is super powerful, to be able to like really, that's why elder women are so scary because they don't give a fuck. Like most like elder women are just like, they've done 52 turns around, the sun. They've seen like every example of human, they're like, they got all the numbers. You know what I mean? It is just, it's like, no, can't hustle a hustler. No. You know what I'm saying? So I'm with you in finding that comfort in community and
Yeah.
finding more yeah, and I'm now like that weird old lady who just like starts chatting up like some 20 somethings who are, they're like trust me, you'll be glad you did, right? Like,
I share something that's super interesting, and I wish that I would have checked in with my mom so I could um speak more eloquently and clearly about this. But so my mom had, I think she had a hysterectomy because she had like kidney stone. There was some fucked up shit happening when I was under 10 years old. I think around 7 or something. So I grew up with my mom not having a period, but she was put on medication for decades. Okay. And I think it was, okay. So then in her 70s, she started working with a homeopath, as I did. And they determined that she'd been on,
you said
um
pros, they
because
determine that.
she had never gone through menopause. And I'm sorry if, mom, if I'm butchering this, but this is what I can share. You'll get the gist of it. What was interesting is when my mom went off after like 40 years or whatever being on this medication, my mom's in her fucking 70s, she goes off this medication and she starts having hot flashes. She started having night sweats. She starts having all these symptoms. And that to me was just like, holy crap. Absolutely. I'm totally not against medication at all,
Mhm.
but that was suppressing her body's like experience of
So
letting this
so is
shit
birth control
work
pills.
itself
I mean,
out.
right. I mean, birth control pills are tricking your body to believe that it's
Yeah.
pregnant, right? So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there is it's again a whole other, ball of wax. There's a lot of controversy about hormone replacement therapy, and your
Right.
mom maybe was taking estrogen, and there is some, it's not, that is not for everybody, but studies have shown too, and especially just recently, that for some women it is incredible, especially in that perimenopausal, like just in like mid 40s to mid 50s. Studies have shown that it can be incredibly um, helpful in sustaining heart health, bone health in particular,
Mhm.
to get you to that other side. And that looks different for everybody. Some
Right.
people, that is usually done by doing some blood work where you'll find your hormone levels, your average of your progesterone. They test for what your testosterone and estrogen are, and then they might prescribe. And for some women who have unbearable hot flashes or night sweats, who can't fucking sleep, or have emotional, I mean, estrogen plays a huge part in so much of our body's function. um, and some people need it, Some people it's beneficial to help them, but I'm with you to let somebody go. My dear stepmom is she's in her 80s and she was put on an estrogen and has not been seen, not been blood tested, not for like 20 years, you know. So there's a whole other, you know, we've talked about this in some of the other wisdom circles about um this idea that men, and I'm not saying that you're saying this, but there is many of our mother's generation who believe, and this happened in the early 2000s, of a very I don't want to say botched, like a sort of now debunked study that where they were like estrogen causes cancer, right? So it's not, estrogen does not cause cancer in all people, and it can be beneficial to some. It's most certainly not for everybody, particularly if people have a history, they're smokers, or they have a history of breast cancer. But therein lies, you know, what it's not, you know, not every woman is the same, and everybody has their own journey and their own experience. So let's go back to, for a second, you were talking, I wanted to hear a little bit more about your community. So you talked about your sister, and I love, and you talked about your mom. So that, you know, that can be an indicator, but isn't always the case. So, you know, especially if you have a mom who didn't have any context, that can be challenging. Many women have experiences where they went through menopause, but they also, if you think of we're talking about 1700s, right? At least the last 2-3 generations of women are very much in the dark. And even our grandmothers were of the era that they would just fucking institutionalize women who were in menopause, you know, or burn them. For example, if they were an elder woman and a midwife, right? So it's awesome. And I love that, like, so I read recently, the first thing that you should do when you find when you feel like you're starting to have some perimenopausal symptoms is find your community. And I love that you're finding that context with your sister.
Yeah, yeah, and also just friends who are going through it too. It feels good. And as a nutritional therapist, I have like a very active, informative, supportive Facebook group that, I mean, it's not, I mean, people talk about you can ask any question about anything, but there is a lot of support there, that people are having conversations about many things, but this is one of them for themselves and for clients. So that's just very helpful. And I think, you know, you doing these wisdom circles is really amazing. And I just want to say thank you so much for making this commitment and offering this, because I think that for you to continually do this and remind people that this is happening and engaging with your community and letting people share their story, then that's only going to just help everyone.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy. I mean, I do really feel like it's important work to do. It's important work to just have these conversations. And
Yeah.
yeah, so thanks. Tell me a little bit about, if you're comfortable, just a little bit about, you know, having long-term conditions. And, you know, you talked about you're having rheumatoid arthritis. Do you feel like your conditions with your rheumatoid arthritis have been impacted the hormonal changes to your perimenopause?
I think that I think that for me personally, the all of the loving and supportive changes that I have done with my lifestyle and my mindset and my nutrition over the past 9 years, I think have really helped set me up.
Love it.
So I'm not seeing like a direct correlation, but I know if I was still kind of living the way that I had been living, that I would not be as healthy or as um nurturing to myself in like every way possible,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I have
So
seen all of your changes in transition, and that I'm super proud of you for having,
Thanks.
it takes a lot of work to be, and we are not conditioned as women to put ourselves first, right?
Right.
So that's a big deal. So I'm proud of you. So that's
Thank
good.
you.
And I know
Yeah.
it's always an ongoing process too, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, for
let's
sure.
talk a little bit about sort of staying in that realm. Let's talk a little bit about inflammation, and let's talk about, I as I made a post, I don't know if you saw it. I'm like, this is not a fucking circle about all the, talking about all the shit you're doing wrong and all the shit you shouldn't be eating and all the shit you shouldn't be. No, like that's not what this circle is about, or this conversation. I mean, because again, I would imagine in the work that you do, I know the work that you do, it's all about the individual. It's about your, certainly human bodies are, we can generalize, and we all have inflammation in our bodies, but inflammation in perimenopausal women and menopausal women, I'm still, blows me away and makes me a little bit angry that in that 8-year cycle of all of this shit happening through my body, in my body, that not a single person said, hey, you're a, as you are going, your hormones are fluctuating and your body is stress, and cortisol is increasing, and your stress is increasing, and inflammation is increasing, that your body is like, it's just, there's wreaking havoc everywhere and trying to tell you in many ways. I'm sort of, did you see where I'm going?
Mhm. Yeah.
You want to share a little bit about inflammation and
So what's your question though?
I guess, like, I'm wondering if you have any, as far as inflammation, we know that when hormones start to fluctuate, in particular, there's also the mental piece too, right? In their women, we'll just generalize and say women in their mid 40s to mid 50s are in that stress area where it's like you're probably at the height of your career, you have a family or a household that you're caring for, you maybe even have aging parents, so there's like a level of expectation of you that like can be all an external stressor, right? So
Right.
add an increase of cortisol, maybe that's something you, I know that's something near and dear to your heart, cortisol, or trying to decrease at least the stuff that isn't benefiting us. um what can, do you have suggestions of what people can do to help support them during this time of overall inflammation? Is that fair? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I think so generalizations are hard for me because like you've mentioned several times, everyone is an individual and is coming from a different place and has a different life experience and lifestyle and all of that. But if we talk about like super, super foundational, it's hard to narrow it down, but like sleep is so foundational to everything. And I understand that sleep also can be disrupted when hormones are imbalanced. So there's that, but getting good consistent sleep, because that is when your body is repairing and restoring. And that is so, so critical. And there are lots of things that you can do that aren't supplements or pills or whatever that can help create a more supportive sleep environment. So, but I'm not gonna don't really have time to go into that, but sleep and then just hydration. I mean, people, it's I know there's a lot of people who are like, I'm on it, but then the majority of the people that I experience are like, oh my God, I suck at hydration.
Yep.
But hydration, sleep, and it like literally avoiding processed foods, because that when you have like added chemicals and added sugars and added, that's like just, that's loading on different kinds of toxins that our body is not able to process like it used to. And that ain't good.
And so
And I
everybody
can't,
knows, Since
Yeah.
not everybody knows what a processed food is, just generalize of what is
Or
a
any packaged foods, like prepackaged foods. So even you're getting, um, uh, prepackaged food at, Trader Joe's. If you look at the ingredients, you think it might be healthy.
it is
It's not the
preservative,
most.
things that
It's
have
not
like
the
more
most.
preservatives and things.
There's so many added. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's different kinds of, so package, just really focusing on as much as possible, wholesome real foods. Um, I can't emphasize enough just like having fun, like connection and having fun. I heard on the radio this morning on 89.3, the current Minnesota Public Radio,
Oh,
that there
we heard
is some study that recently came out that loneliness is now something like, now it's like official that loneliness is like taking over Americans or something. And as someone who has I mean, I think we all have experienced loneliness, but loneliness is one of the things that I know has contributed to my autoimmune disease. And that was like, holy shit. So I think we cannot underestimate how much engaging in connection and things that bring us joy and pleasure can help reduce inflammation, because that is lowering our stress. And
yeah.
when we are stressed in any way, that could be toxins, that could be toxic makeup, that could be toxic cleaning supplies, that could be environmental toxins. I mean, that could be whatever it is. Um, any kind of stressor. It could be, alcohol. It could be foods that you have sensitivity to that you're not even aware of. It could be gut health, all that. Like when we are engaging in pleasurable and fun things, that lowers our stress, and that helps our body, that helps support gut health,
Mhm.
and that helps our body process not only emotions, but also just blood flow, and really helps our our serotonin, our dopamine, our endorphins, our oxytocin, all of that, all of those feel good hormones. So, and then just physical activity, moving your body, whatever that means to you. So those are so foundational. I know we hear this all the time, but it's hard to be specific right now. I just want to be super, I think sometimes it's just, we need reminders we don't need all these, like, yes, supplements are great and they can be very helpful, but I think we forget about foundations and just going back to the basics of sleep, hydration, eating real foods, like engaging in pleasurable things, like moving our body, hugging people, laughing. I mean, that is an anti-inflammatory lifestyle.
I love it. That's so important. And I love that like it's that easy and that hard all at once, right?
Is that easy that hard?
Sleep and hydration and joy. I mean, finding joy, in the practice, that I love, Nia, that I teach. We do a practice called 5 stages, and it is sort of the evolution of self, right? You start and you just roll on the floor. We call that embryonic. Then you travel to crawling, and onto all fours, and then you go from high to low, increasing that heart rate. And the last piece is laughter, is just sitting there like, it's weird, I know it, but like, just for like the benefit of like just even forced laughter, is like my instructor would say, like, it is, you use more core muscles than you do in laughter than you do in most crunches, so I
Cry,
love
like I have
that.
tears. That's so
That's
beautiful.
it is. It's such great. That's such great advice. So like, I think that for those of us, I've really struggled a lot with sleep. And so, if that is something I think ultimately trying to do naturally, I can share that things that have worked for me. I was just telling you before we started about magnesium spray. Like this was in the course, someone had suggested it. And I think that there's cream too, so you can do it topically. So you're doing, transdermally. I don't know why someone says they spray it on their feet. maybe it's a placebo. I don't know. I sleep so well. It feels
Take
so
it.
good.
Placebos work.
Nourishing. Oh God, whatever it takes, right? So just nourishing sleep. I have heard that taking magnesium, if it is something as a supplement, is incredibly supportive for menopausal women for a variety of just tissue health, of brain health, all of that too. So those are ones that I know are good. And vitamin D, you probably have nuggets to say about vitamin D.
So supplements are great, but I think often, I mentioned this earlier, often we read something and we're like, oh my God, and we run out and we buy supplements
Yeah.
that might be shitty quality and we might not need them. So I always really like to, when I work with clients, I generally at some point we engage with supplements, but that's after I get to know them and their bodies and their lifestyle. But in terms of vitamin D, definitely we need to get tested. I mean, I don't take vitamin D supplements and I have an autoimmune disease. What are we going to say?
Sunshine.
Sunshine, right, right. I was going to say people take vitamin D supplements and sometimes we need that and we need calcium, we need it for bone health, osteoporosis, all that. But if your vitamin D, I believe that if your vitamin D levels are at a good place, in a good range, you can talk to your doctor about that. That's okay. Like, I think that that's okay. And I definitely am not getting as much sunshine, but I eat a lot of sardines and mackerel and fatty fish. And I know that that's really helping boost my vitamin D. But 100% going outside.
Yeah.
But that's not always accessible. And especially if you're living in cold weather or climates, or, you've got a job that keeps you indoors and sometimes it's really hard and we can get so stuck inside, but it's something really to prioritize and think about. But just in terms of supplements, often we take supplements, but we don't change our lifestyle or on our diet. And that's a waste. It's a waste of money.
Yep.
My firm stance.
Well,
We need to take a very holistic approach.
yes, I love it. And you and I talked about talking about diet culture. We
Yeah.
haven't gotten to it.
We
But
haven't talked, I just realized, well, this is what I want to say. And I'm thinking out loud right now because I've talked about this with some of my clients recently. And there's something there and I don't know what it is. And I still don't know what it is as I'm talking about it. But there's so much about like body acceptance. We got to accept this. So I got to accept that I have pain. I got to accept my body. And I don't know yes, of course, for sure. But I like to challenge, like we read these things or we have these conversations and we just are like, oh yeah, that's right. But I don't know, in some ways I'm kind of a rebel and I always like to challenge just what we think is like the best thing for us to really, what does that actually mean to accept our body as we are? Because like, just for example, one of my clients, when we started working together last year, and she's like, well, I just want to get to a place where I can accept the pain. I'm like, you don't need to accept the pain. Like the pain doesn't need to be there. I can help you, like guide you to like work through that pain. So when we think about how our society and diet culture affects us, it's super fucked up. I was literally, let's see, what day is it? Thursday. It was Tuesday. I was talking to one of my best friends. I'm going to cry right now. Her daughter is freaking 11 years old and is already there. She's already talking. And I'm like, she's talking about how her thighs are fat. She's talking about this, that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God, my first diet, I was in 5th grade. So this is something that we are, unfortunately, and here I am thinking like, I don't have kids. Here I'm thinking like, oh, we're in such a better place now. I'm like, where is she hearing this? She's like me.
well,
It's like,
listen,
she's hearing
I made it a point to never to talk because I am so hyper aware of it, and I made a conscious effort to never speak that way around my child. Still,
doesn't, yeah.
it's
So,
culture.
there's that. But just in terms of where, as women 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, beyond, unfortunately, we're still inundated that we still have these expectations. And as our bodies are changing and as we're trying to understand what the hell's going on, not only is usually our physical activity might be changing, like what we used to be able to like climb a mountain in 30 minutes, now it might take 45 minutes or whatever.
Or
Or
maybe you don't
like,
need to be climbing mountains anymore.
or
That's
we might need
yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
or our bodies are just changing and evolving. And so there's this idea of like, yes, we can accept that. And I know, I'm kind of, I'm just kind of going back to that thought, and I need to really think about it and articulate it. But I think that there's something more than like feeling pressure to accept yourself as who you are.
It's
And
a
I'm not
deep,
exactly sure what it means or what it is,
Mhm.
but I think when we are going through changes in our body, no matter what, age, but specifically we're talking about this menopausal transition. We're talking like what are 40s and 50s. If there are thoughts that we're having about ourselves, that we're putting pressure on ourselves, or we're thinking that we should be at a different weight, or should have a different level of ability, or should be in a different place, I really, really encourage you just to ask yourself, why do you think that way?
It's
And
a lot of, I feel like it's a lot of dismantling of an entire lifetime of
yeah,
conditioning of cultural shit.
yeah, exactly.
The science of it is that, estrogen does many things in the body, including influencing the amount of fat we have in the body. Estrogen regulates glucose and lipid metabolism, right? So if your estrogen levels are low, for some people, it can result in weight gain. Like, this is fact, this is science, right? A lot of people don't even understand that and what's happening in their body. And so, research suggests that this is why a lot of women who are in menopause or approaching menopause gain weight in their midsection. Pretty much not everybody, of course, because there's not, we don't like to generalize, but as the ovaries make the estrogen hormones, as though, and also the adrenal glands and fat cells also make small amounts of hormones. So in addition to regulating menstrual cycle, estrogen affects the reproductive tract, the urinary tract, the heart and blood vessels, bones, skin, teeth, hair, mucous membranes, pelvic muscles, and brain, and your brain. So like when that shifts, and we know scientifically this is shifting. This is just, I explain this because it's helpful to know the science, to understand, to deconstruct the bullshit. Because this is something that is physiologically happens to your body that you really don't have a whole lot of control of. And your body is so fucking smart. It is wanting to protect, like estrogen protects the organs. And so when we lack estrogen, we put on oftentimes more adipose, some additional fat to protect our midsections. It's perfectly natural to become a little more soft.
right.
And
So,
so
yeah, yeah, go on.
anyway, I just think that like for me that was helpful to be like, to dismantle what is not true, to be like, okay, so this is happening to almost virtually everybody in their own unique way. That's what bodies do, because bodies are brilliant. It made it a little easier for me to spot the bullshit and not accept it. Does that make
I
sense?
think so, like, yes. And I think though that, everyone, like we all have insecurities. We all are in different places in our journey. And if we just think about the idea of getting in touch and reconnecting with our bodies as it's changing, like, and if we think about that, the idea of, diet culture, or any, or maybe it wasn't, maybe it's just whatever your you know, your mom told you, or who knows what it is that it's like impacting you. But if there is any sort of insecurity of or level of self-judgment or self-criticism or uh self-hatred, unfortunately, or any sort of unrealistic expectation of where you're at right now in your body, no matter if it's like related to menopause or not, just I think as you like one thing that I would like to offer, and I'm like a huge proponent of journaling because I think that sometimes it's really scary for us to face ourselves. Some people love journaling, some people hate it. But I think instead of trying to be like, okay, I need to take this supplement. Oh, okay, I need to do I need to do this, I need to do that. Well, let's just fucking slow down and talk to ourselves. And I love to recommend doing something called like a brain dump or a thought download. So, at the top of the paper, you could write like my body, or my changing body, and literally set your phone timer for 20 minutes and just let it out.
This exercise that I did with you, I did that and it like changed my life. And I just have to share for our friends that I did that. And remember, I was like, I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want, can I type it? No, handwrite. No, no, no typing, handwriting. And I did it. And do you remember when we read it together? And I was like, as I wrote it, I like uncovered deep in my psyche the phrase, my body is a tool, not a temple. And that changed my life. Like it changed the trajectory of like, it was almost like, it was so deep and underlying that I realized it was the foundation and the source of so much dysfunction in my body and in my thinking. And so it was, I thank you, and I've thanked you a million times that like that exercise was so instrumental. And I still struggle with it a lot. I mean, my body has changed dramatically in the last just the last 2 years even. And I probably am more gentle and kind to myself than I've ever been, but I struggle probably daily. But the fact that I have like unearthed the muck, you know what I mean? Like under the
Right. That you were
surface.
thinking that your body was a tool and using it that way and recognizing that that's been harmful for you.
Harmful, right? Yeah. And so like that,
Yeah.
it's like I sort of like, I saw the ghost in the machine, right? So I was like,
Yeah.
that dismantling,
Yeah.
I totally recommend that for folks. Like,
Yeah, I just want to just repeat myself. Like all these things are great. Supplements can be great. Food is great. Of course, laughter is great. Like moving your body, all that's great. But a part of that piece is like, if we are disconnected from ourselves, then we can't be as supportive as we could. So it could be as simple or as hard as literally doing a 20-minute journaling with yourself to see where you're at. And sometimes with these journaling experiences like you, literally things just come up and we're just talking, you can just scribble. It doesn't even have to be legible, but things start popping up out of nowhere, and it can just really, like you said, unearth or uncover or just be a relief or a release
yeah.
of anything that you might be consciously or even unconsciously aware of that you're dealing with as you're going through menopausal changes and your relationship with your body. Because it's like we can throw as many pills or supplements or whatever at us, but truly our connection with ourself and with our body is so, so important. And so learning to open your heart and nurture that relationship, even if you've never done it before, it's like, that's okay. We're all, we're all like,
One might
work in
argue,
progress.
yeah, I mean, one might argue it's the most important. It's the
Yeah, I think so. That's like, that's, that's what I love doing, working with clients, because it pisses me off because I'm not like this, like nutritionist, whatever. I mean, when someone thinks about working with, I mean, some people do just want to be told, this is what you eat, this is what you take, this is a supplement, good luck, have fun. Like, that's not me, because that doesn't, like, I'm all about the self exploration, evolution journey, because that's like what my life's journey has been. And that's what I love helping people do, because I think that's where your true strength and power and beauty can really evolve and emerge. And through that self-discovery, then can come whatever, if you want to call it acceptance or nurturing or whatever. And then you can more easily make supportive decisions when you understand and feel a connection with your body. Then you can make decisions that are like more true to what you need, because you're more in tune, versus reading something and saying, oh, I got to do that because they told me I got to do that.
Yep.
You know what I
I
mean?
love it. And that's like a great segue. I mean, I feel like, diet culture, we can't change the culture. It's a multi-billion dollar industry based on us hating ourselves, right? So the foundation is we can only not accept that poison and nurture our connection to our bodies and learn by resting, drinking water, or hydrating, and getting some sunshine, some laughter, and self-reflection. I mean, because this is, menopause is can be an incredible life-changing experience. And you can go kicking and screaming, or you can make it what you want it to be, as you did, when you were like stepped into 50, you're like, kick and stretch. I'm gonna do a photo shoot in high heels and stockings and nothing
Totally. Yeah. Fuck it, man. Yeah.
else. And I
Yeah. I love you.
love you. I just want to wrap her up here. I could talk, all night with you. But I just want to open up to our friends, our guests here. If you have any thoughts or questions or comments, ideas, we don't know it all. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Alyssa, what is your job again? It probably said in the thing I signed up for, probably said.
Yeah, I'm a nutritional therapist and holistic wellness coach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. Any other thoughts? We'll wrap it up. Well, it has been my pleasure and honor to have you. Our next Wisdom Circle, I think we're going to take a little break in June, but in July, we're going to have 2 guests, and we're going to discuss the impact of menopause transition can have on relationships. So
amazing.
Yeah, and it's going to be
having.
I'm having our dear friends and dynamic couple, Joe Weldon and Johnny Pork Pie.
That's awesome.
They're going to be great. So look.
My God, that's amazing.
Yeah, awesome. Well, have a lovely evening, and remember, tell your stories and ask your questions and share your wisdom. Thank you for
And you're not alone.
You're not alone. You're not alone. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the next Wisdom Circle.
Bye.